Elena Voss stood outside the great stone hall with her hands pressed tightly together, trying to stop them from shaking. Inside, hundreds of wolves waited for her wedding. She was not marrying for love. She was marrying to save her family. Her father had made a mistake years ago. He had borrowed strength from the Ashgrove pack when their own pack was dying, and now the debt had come due. The price was Elena. She would become the wife of King Damian Ashgrove, the most powerful alpha in the Northern Territories, a man she had never met and had only heard stories about. The stories were not kind. They said he was cold. They said he never smiled. They said his wolf had not accepted a mate in all his years as king, and many believed he never would. Elena did not want a fairy tale. She only wanted her family safe. If marrying a stranger meant her younger brothers would grow up protected, she would walk through that door and say the words required of her. The doors opened. She walked down the aisle with her chin lifted, refusing to let anyone see how afraid she felt. At the end of the hall stood a tall man with dark hair and sharp gray eyes. King Damian did not smile when she approached. He did not reach for her hand with any warmth. He simply watched her, as if trying to solve a puzzle he had not asked to be given. The ceremony was short. The words were formal. When it ended, the court did not cheer. They only watched, some with curiosity, some with quiet judgment. Elena heard whispers behind gloved hands. A pack princess reduced to a payment. A king forced to accept a bride beneath his station. She kept her back straight and pretended not to hear. That night, Elena was brought to the king's private chambers for the final part of the marriage tradition, the mate mark. It was custom for a new bride to receive it from her husband, a light claiming touch that would bond them forever, at least in the eyes of the pack. She stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself, waiting for it to be over. Damian approached slowly. His eyes, usually so guarded, flickered gold for just a moment, the color of his wolf coming close to the surface. He raised his hand toward her. Then he stopped. His whole body went still, as though something inside him had frozen in place. His breath caught. Elena watched, confused, as his eyes widened and his jaw tightened. He took a step back from her, one hand pressed to his own chest like he was in pain. "What is it?" Elena asked quietly. She braced herself for rejection, for him to say she was not worthy even of this small tradition. But he said nothing. He turned and walked out of the room without a single word, leaving her standing alone in the moonlight, more confused than she had been on her wedding day. What Elena did not know was that in the moment, his hand had come close to her skin, his wolf had surged forward inside him, and spoken a single word with a certainty that shook him to his core. Mate. Damian had heard of the word all his life. Every wolf grew up hearing stories about the mate bond, about wolves who found someone their very soul recognized before their mind could understand why. He had stopped believing it would happen to him. He had taken brides before, arranged for politics, and felt nothing from his wolf but polite indifference. He had accepted long ago that he would rule alone, bound only by duty, and never by fate. Yet the moment his hand had reached for Elena, his wolf had risen with a force he had never felt, whispering her name like it had been waiting centuries just to say it. He did not understand it. He did not trust it. A political bride, forced upon him through a debt, could not be the one true thing his wolf had been searching for all his life. It felt like a cruel joke, or worse, a mistake that could put them both in danger, if it were true, and others discovered it before he did. So he said nothing to her. He avoided her for days, leaving Elena to wonder what she had done wrong. She ate her meals alone. She wandered the halls of the castle without company, feeling like a stranger in a home that was supposed to be hers now. The other wolves at court watched her with distant politeness, unsure how to treat a queen their king seemed to be avoiding. Damian, meanwhile, buried himself in old records. He remembered something his mother had told him once, long before she passed, about a prophecy tied to their bloodline. A line thought broken, a descendant thought lost, meant to return one day and complete what the first Ashgrove king had begun centuries ago. He had dismissed it as an old story told to children. Now he searched through dusty books and forgotten letters, looking for anything that could explain what his wolf had felt. He found it in a journal belonging to his great-grandmother. It spoke of a hidden wolf bloodline, one that had gone into hiding generations ago, to escape a war between packs, a bloodline believed to carry a rare gift passed only through daughters. The journal named the family Voss. Damien sat back in his chair, stunned. Elena's mother had not been fully human, as everyone at court believed. She had been the last hidden branch of a bloodline connected to his own family by an old promise, one made long before either of their fathers had ever met. The marriage was not simply a debt paid in desperation. It had been guided by something far older than either of them understood. He realized then that his wolf had not made a mistake. Fate had simply used circumstances neither of them controlled to bring them together. Still, Damien did not know how to explain this to Elena. How could he tell a woman who had been forced into marriage that the very forces that trapped her had also been trying, in their own strange way, to give her something real? He worried she would think it was another trick, another attempt to control her feelings the way her circumstances already had. While he wrestled with how to approach her, Elena continued adjusting to her new life. She began spending time in the gardens, one of the few places at court that felt peaceful. It was there that Lord Corwin, an ambitious council member, found her one afternoon. Lord Corwin was polite on the surface, offering compliments about her composure and her grace, but Elena sensed something calculating behind his smile. He asked careful questions about her mother's family, questions that felt too pointed to be simple curiosity. Elena, cautious by nature, gave him little information, but she left the conversation feeling uneasy. That evening, Corwin requested a private meeting with several council members. He had long resented the growing influence of outside bloodlines mixing with the royal line, fearing it would weaken the traditional alliances he had spent years building. When his own investigation uncovered whispers about Elena's ancestry, he saw an opportunity rather than a miracle. If her bloodline could be framed as a threat instead of a gift, he could use it to remove her from the kingdom entirely and restore the political marriage he had originally hoped Damien would make. Corwin began spreading careful rumors through the court, suggesting that the queen's hidden bloodline was unstable, even dangerous, something that could bring misfortune to the kingdom rather than strength. Elena began noticing colder looks from courtiers who had once been simply distant. Servants avoided her eyes. Even the guards seemed to watch her more closely than before. Confused and hurt, Elena finally confronted Damien in his study one evening, unwilling to remain silent any longer. "Tell me the truth," she said, standing firm despite her nerves. "Why does everyone look at me like I'm something to fear? Why did you walk away from me on our wedding night? I deserve to know what is happening in my own life." Damien studied her for a long moment. Then, finally, he told her everything. He told her about his wolf's reaction the night of their marriage. He told her about the journal, about the hidden bloodline, about the old promise between their families that neither of them had known existed. He told her that his wolf had called her his mate the very first time he had reached for her, and that it was not fear that made him walk away, but the shock of realizing that everything he had stopped believing in might actually be true. Elena sat in silence, absorbing it all. Part of her wanted to be angry that he had kept it from her for so long, but another part of her, the part that had felt inexplicably drawn to him despite everything, understood why he had needed time. "Why didn't you just tell me sooner?" she asked softly. "Because I was afraid you would think it was another lie used to control you," Damien admitted. "You have had enough people use words to trap you. I did not want to be one more." For the first time since her wedding day, Elena felt something other than fear or duty toward him. She felt seen. But there was little time to process this new understanding, because Corwin's plan was already moving forward. He convinced several council members that the Queen's bloodline posed a genuine risk to the kingdom's future, using twisted interpretations of the very journal Damien had found. He requested a formal hearing before the full court, aiming to have the marriage annulled on the grounds that Elena's lineage threatened the stability of the throne. Damien could have refused the hearing outright, using his authority as king to dismiss it. But he knew that silencing the challenge without addressing it openly would only allow the rumors to grow in the shadows. He needed the truth spoken clearly, in front of everyone, so there could be no more room for lies. The hearing took place in the same great hall where they had been married. The court gathered once more, this time with tension replacing celebration. Lord Corwin stood before the council, presenting his case with practiced confidence, painting Elena's bloodline as an unpredictable danger rather than what it truly was. When it was Damien's turn to speak, he did not simply defend his wife with political arguments. He walked to where Elena stood and took her hand in front of everyone, something he had never done publicly before. My wolf did not choose her because of a debt, and he did not fear her because of some old superstition, Damien said, his voice carrying through the silent hall. My wolf recognized her the moment I met her, before I knew anything about her family or her past. She is not a danger to this kingdom. She is the reason this kingdom's oldest promise can finally be kept. Murmurs spread through the court, but Damien was not finished. He turned to Elena, no longer speaking to the council, but only to her. I should have said this on our wedding night, instead of walking away, he said quietly. You are my true mate, not because fate arranged our circumstances, but because every part of me recognizes every part of you. I do not want a bride bound to me by debt. I want a wife bound to me because she chooses to be. Elena felt her eyes fill with unexpected emotion. She had spent weeks feeling like an outsider in her own life, uncertain of her place, uncertain even of herself. But standing there, hearing him speak with complete honesty in front of the entire court, she finally understood that what connected them was not something forced upon her at all. It had simply been waiting for both of them to accept it. I choose you too, she said, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. Not because I have to, because I want to. As the words left her lips, something shifted between them, a warmth that neither of them could deny, recognized instantly by everyone who understood the old traditions. The mate bond, long delayed by fear and misunderstanding, settled into place before the entire court, undeniable and complete. Lord Corwin's accusations crumbled instantly. No council member could argue against a bond so clearly real, confirmed by ancient wolf law itself. His plan, built on twisted fear, could not survive against the truth standing plainly in front of them. He was quietly removed from his position in the days that followed, his influence gone as quickly as it had risen. In the months that came after, Elena was no longer viewed as a debt paid in desperation. She became a queen respected in her own right, her bloodline no longer treated as a threat, but honored as the fulfillment of a promise generations old. The court that once whispered about her, now spoke of her with quiet admiration. Late one evening, as they stood together on the balcony overlooking the kingdom, Damien wrapped his arms around her, resting his chin gently against her hair. I almost let fear cost me everything, he admitted softly. Elena leaned back against him, finally at peace in a life she once thought would only ever be built on obligation. But you didn't, she said. And that is what matters now. Below them, the kingdom rested quietly under the moonlight, unaware of how close its future had come to being lost to misunderstanding and fear. But within the walls of the castle, two people who had once been strangers, bound only by duty, now stood together as something far stronger, connected not by the debt that had forced them together, but by a bond neither of them would ever again be afraid to claim.